The airport terminal was loud, crowded, and restless. People rushed past each other without making eye contact. But near gate 14, one woman stood completely still, staring at a man she never thought she would see again. Her hands began to shake. Because 5 years earlier, she had walked away from him when he needed her most. And now, he was leaving this world behind forever. Before we begin today's emotional story, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and comment below if you believe kindness can change a life. Welcome to Kindness Story Hub, where every story reminds us that even the smallest act of kindness can leave the deepest mark on someone's heart. Emily Carter used to believe success mattered more than people. At 32 years old, she had everything she once dreamed about. A high-paying job in Chicago, a luxury apartment, expensive clothes, and a busy social life filled with people who admired her success. But deep inside, something always felt empty. 5 years earlier, things were very different. Back then, Emily was struggling to build her career. She worked long hours at a small marketing company and barely earned enough to pay rent. Life felt stressful and uncertain. During that difficult time, one person stood beside her through everything. Daniel Brooks. Daniel was kind in a way the world rarely notices anymore. He wasn't rich. He didn't drive a fancy car. He worked as a mechanic in a small auto shop outside the city. But he had a calm heart and a quiet way of caring for people. When Emily lost her apartment after missing rent payments, Daniel offered his tiny one-bedroom place without hesitation. When she cried at night because she felt like a failure, Daniel stayed awake listening to her for hours. When she doubted herself, he reminded her she was stronger than she believed. He loved her in the purest way possible. But Emily was too focused on climbing higher. The day she got offered a better job in another city changed everything. Daniel smiled proudly when she told him the news. He even helped her pack her bags. But that same night, he finally asked the question that had been living quietly in his heart. "Do you still see a future with me?" Emily remembered the silence that followed. She looked around his tiny apartment. The peeling paint on the walls. The old furniture. The smell of motor oil from his work clothes hanging nearby. And for the first time, she saw him as someone who didn't fit into the future she wanted. "You're a good person, Daniel," she said softly. "But I need more from life." Those words crushed him. Still, he nodded gently and helped carry her suitcases downstairs the next morning. That was the last time she saw him. At first, Emily felt relieved. She convinced herself she made the right choice. Her career grew quickly. Promotions came one after another. She dated wealthy men, attended glamorous events, and built the life she once dreamed about. But no matter how successful she became, she never forgot the way Daniel looked at her that morning. Not angry. Not bitter. Just hurt. Years passed. Then one rainy evening, everything changed again. Emily was sitting in her office when she received a message from an unknown number. "Hi Emily. You probably don't remember me. My name is Sarah. I'm Daniel Brooks' sister." Her chest tightened immediately. The next line hit even harder. "Daniel is very sick." Emily stared at the screen for several seconds before replying. "What does this have to do with me?" Emily finally asked. The response came almost instantly. "He talks about you all the time." Emily froze. Sarah continued. "He never hated you for leaving. He always said you deserved the life you wanted. But he kept one photo of you beside his bed every day." For the first time in years, Emily felt something crack inside her. That night, she couldn't sleep. Memories of Daniel flooded her mind. The way he made coffee every morning before work. The way he laughed at terrible movies. The way he always noticed when strangers needed help. Once, Emily remembered, Daniel spent nearly 3 hours helping an elderly man fix a flat tire in freezing weather. When she asked why he cared so much about a stranger, Daniel simply smiled. "Because one day, I might need kindness too." Back then, she didn't understand those words. Now they haunted her. The next morning, Emily booked a flight immediately. She told herself she was only going to apologize. Nothing more. But deep down, she knew she was running towards something she had lost long ago. When she arrived at the small hospital in Ohio, fear filled her chest. Daniel looked thinner than she remembered. His face was pale, and machines surrounded his bed. But when he opened his eyes and saw her standing there, he smiled exactly the same way he used to. Warm. Gentle. Safe. "Emily," he whispered. Tears filled her eyes instantly. "I'm sorry," she said before anything else. "I'm so sorry for leaving you." Daniel looked at her quietly for a moment. Then he did something she never expected. He reached for her hand. "You don't have to apologize," he said softly. Emily broke down crying. Most people would have hated her. Most people would have reminded her how badly she hurt them. But Daniel never did. That was who he was. Over the next few days, Emily stayed beside him constantly. She postponed meetings, ignored work calls, and barely left the hospital room. And slowly, she began noticing something extraordinary. Nurses loved Daniel. Patients smiled whenever he spoke. Even hospital staff stopped by his room during breaks just to talk to him. One nurse pulled Emily aside one evening. "You know," she said, "Daniel spends more time comforting other patients than thinking about himself." Emily looked confused. The nurse smiled sadly. "Last week he gave his meal to a homeless man outside the hospital. Yesterday he spent 2 hours calming a scared little boy before surgery." Emily felt tears rising again. Daniel was dying. Yet he was still focused on helping others feel less afraid. That night, Emily sat beside his bed while rain tapped softly against the hospital windows. "How are you still this kind?" she asked quietly. Daniel looked toward the window. "Because life becomes lighter when you help carry someone else's pain." She had spent years chasing success, status, and recognition. And yet this man, with almost nothing left, carried more peace in his heart than anyone she had ever known. For the first time in her life, Emily understood what truly mattered. The following week, doctors delivered difficult news. Daniel's condition had worsened. There was little time left. Emily felt completely shattered. But Daniel remained calm. One afternoon, he asked her for a small favor. "Can you help me go outside?" The nurses carefully rolled him into a wheelchair and helped bring him to the hospital garden. The sun was setting softly across the sky, painting everything gold and orange. Daniel closed his eyes and smiled. "I miss this," he whispered. Emily sat beside him quietly. After a long silence, Daniel spoke again. "You know what I regret most?" Emily looked down sadly. "What?" "That I spent too much time thinking I wasn't enough for you." Her heart broke instantly. "No," she cried softly. "I was the one who wasn't enough." Daniel shook his head gently. "We were both just trying to figure life out." Then he looked directly at her. "But promise me something. Anything. When I'm gone, don't spend your life chasing things that disappear. Spend it loving people while you still can." Emily couldn't stop crying. She nodded through tears. "I promise." 3 days later, Daniel passed away peacefully during the early morning hours. Emily felt like the world had gone silent. At the funeral, hundreds of people showed up. Old neighbors. Former co-workers. Strangers whose lives Daniel had touched through simple acts of kindness. One man stood up during the service and shared how Daniel repaired his car for free after he lost his job. A single mother talked about how Daniel secretly paid for her son's winter coat one Christmas. Another woman said Daniel once sat with her entire night in the emergency room because she was too scared to be alone. Emily listened to every story with tears streaming down her face. Daniel had never become famous. He never became wealthy. But somehow, he became unforgettable. Months later, Emily made the biggest decision of her life. She left her corporate career behind and started a community outreach center in Daniel's hometown. The center helped struggling families with food, transportation, counseling, and emergency support. Above the entrance doors, she placed a small sign with Daniel's favorite words. "Life becomes lighter when you help carry someone else's pain." And every single day, Emily tried to live by those words. Because kindness had changed her. Not through speeches. Not through success. But through one gentleman who kept loving people, even after his own heart was breaking. Sometimes, the people we leave behind are the very ones who teach us how to truly live. And sometimes, kindness returns long after we think it's gone, waiting patiently to change us forever. If this story touched your heart, remember to like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who needs a reminder that kindness still exists in this world. And never forget, a single act of love can stay alive in someone's heart long after we are gone.